What's going on, guys? This is Sean Singh again with an awesome tutorial build. I'm going to show you guys how to make these headphone chairs. I'm basically going to show you guys how to make this chair using a saucer chair that you can easily purchase from Walmart or Target or something like that. I'm going to build the actual headphone and we're going to wrap the chair with it. A quite tedious build. You're going to need quite a bit of tools. So let's just jump right into it. Why don't we?
My hardboard, I've already cut it down to a small workable size, which is about 2 feet by 8 feet. I've got my router attached to a jig, which will allow me to cut a smooth circle, and I'm going to use a skill saw and I'm going to cut out all the excess material. And once you're done, it will look like a big old doggy bone. And then you're going to want to take some sandpaper and a sanding block and then clean off all the edges. And when you're done with that, it should look something like this. Now I'm going to take my router and I'm going to cut some 3/4 inch particle board. I'm going to make 2 of these. They're going to be about 18 inch in diameter, and I'm going to add this to the speaker side of the headphone, which will add some thickness to it. Now I'm going to cut me out a couple more discs. One will be 18 inch in diameter, the other one will be 22 inch. This will be used as a jig to make the armrest. I'm going to save all the sawdust for a future project. And now that all the cutting is done and out of the way, I'm going to glue everything together. You're going to want to clamp everything down and have it sit overnight, but if you don't have enough clamp like I do, you're going to have to improvise. I use a 60-pound bag of concrete and some weight and let gravity do the rest of the work. There are some 1-inch block that I'm going to use to put on my clamps, and this is going to hold the headphones to the chair. Then I'm going to loosely put on the clamps. I'm going to use this 2x2 studs as my cross member brace. It's going to hold the 2 speaker sides together, and I'm going to attach an L bracket to both ends and then use some conduit clamps to hold it to the leg of the chair. Using my nifty measuring tape, I want to make sure everything is nice and even before I tighten it down. It's time to attach the headphones to the rest of the chair. I'm going to leave everything sort of kind of loose until I get everything in the right spot. And then once I have everything just the way I want it, I'll go back and I'll tighten up all the screws. There's a close-up shot of everything as I have it screwed in. Here's how it looks like from underneath and behind. So far so groovy, and everything is starting to come into place. I'm going to take some scrap EVA foam and I'm going to add a little bit of thickness to the bridge of the headphone. So I'm going to mark everything, cut it, sand down the surface, and apply my contact cement. I found another use for these annoying little ends that come with the EVA foam. You want to apply some contact cement to the chair. You want to make sure everything is nice and snugly tight fitting and whatever. You don't want this thing falling apart when you sit down on it, because that would be embarrassing, kinda. But then again, you're not drag racing in this chair. Could you imagine that? I did. It was kind of weird. Take some sandpaper and sand everything nice and smooth. And once you're done with that, take some Mod Podge so you can seal the EVA foam. And look at this crusty sight. No problemo, I have a solution. I'm going to use some iron-on veneer edging. You just line it up and use an iron and then just apply some heat, and then it'll glue itself down. I think this is easier than using Bondo or wood filler. Yeah, once you get it all done, you want to trim off all the excess and sand it down smooth. And now your headphone is starting to look bling. Now you're ready to paint it. Use the color of your choice. I decided to go with red. I don't know why, just cause. I'm starting to dig what I'm cooking, and I hope you're digging it too. And now we're going to take those 2 discs that we cut earlier and we are going to work on the armrest. I've got some 2-inch styrofoam, which I'm going to sandwich in between these 2 discs. I'm going to drill out the holes big enough for a 3/8-inch bolt, and I'm going to tighten it all down with a nut. Then I'm going to flip this thing over to the larger disc so I can cut it down to size so I can work with it a whole lot easier. Now I don't have a hot knife, so I'm going to make one out of this razor blade. See how it just cuts right through it like warm butter? Almost. Now that I got bulk of the mess out of the way, I'm going to use a hot wire cutter to trim off the excess foam. We have a couple tutorials on how to make these foam cutters. I'll leave links in the descriptions below. Pressure a hot wire to the wood and you're going to get this really cool looking flying saucer disc thingy. And I'm also going to save this scrap foam for my next project.
For real, bro? You gotta learn to let go. No.
I'm drilling a hole so I can add a screw or a nail there. This will act as a guard so I can cut off the sharp edge of the armrest. Now I got this nice little beveled edge and it doesn't look as dangerous as before. Then I'm going to take my sanding block and I'm going to knock it down smooth. Now I'm going to take a piece of cardboard paper, cut it in 18-inch diameter so I can mark out the areas that I need to cut off. That keeps me from sliding everything in, and I'm going to measure it onto the other side. Then I'm going to transfer that to my styrofoam, and I'm going to use my hot foam cutter so I can cut off these excess pieces that I don't need. And I might save these pieces too. And now it's time to check to see if everything fits, and it does. So let's move on to wrapping these bad boys up. I'm going to cut out some vinyl. This vinyl is actually a 4-way stretch, so it makes it easier to wrap around this styrofoam thingy. And I'm going to sew it to where it wraps around it nice and tight. You want it to be as tight as the inner diameter because it'll stretch out enough to fit around the outer diameter. Take some hot glue and glue everything down. I'm actually using some low temp hot glue. It makes it a lot easier to handle and it dries a lot quicker. And once you got everything glued down, it's safe to cut off the excess material, and you want to fold that in and glue that down. And now you'll be able to slide it into place with no problem at all. I'm cutting out some stretch cotton fabric so I can do the upholstery on the bridge of the headphone. I'm applying some contact cement just on the edge of the fabric. Then I'm going to apply some contact cement onto the foam. Once the contact cement is dry and ready, you want to carefully apply the fabric to the glued area. You're going to want to take it nice and easy. Make sure you get everything nice and straight because once it's glued on, it's on there for good, for life. Then you're going to cut off all your excess material and leave a little bit enough so you can tuck underneath the foam. I'm applying some spray adhesive so I can glue on some 1-inch thick foam. I'm going to tuck and roll it, and then I'm going to wrap the upholstery or that fabric right on top of it. I'm using a straight edge ruler so I can wedge it into the tight areas. I'm carefully making sure that everything goes down and underneath the chair. That way I can take some spray adhesive and spray all underneath there and attach everything. This should keep it all in place for good, forever. It should look something like this once you're done. Now let's move on to the cushion for the armrest. I cut some fabric in 14-inch, sewed it up like a tube sock, and I'm going to wrap it around this 4x4-inch thick foam. I use saran wrap. This will make it easier for me to slide on the tube sock, and it also will help curve up the edges a little bit. Then sew up the ends so it'll be all nice and purty. I actually put some galvanized wire inside. It'll help it keep its shape like this. Then I'm going to take this 8-inch needle and I'm going to use some upholstery threads and I'm going to thread it. Basically, I'm going to sew this cushion to the styrofoam using this button so that the thread doesn't go completely through. I've never sewn anything this thick before, but it is quite possible. There may be a better method of doing this. This is the best way I can think of. So I'm going to tie off the thread to this button. I'm gonna wrap it around the button like 100,000 times so it doesn't fall apart on me. You know, I probably should have used black thread and a black button so it's less visible, but I used what I had. And I can always go back and paint over it if it really mattered that much to me. I got some 2.5-inch screws with some plastic washer. I'm gonna use this to screw the styrofoam into the board. You wanna make sure your screw isn't too long where it comes out the other side of the headphone, because then you just screw things up and you don't wanna do that. This part is optional. I took the B logo and I cut it out on some cardboard. And then I'm gonna use this as a template so I can trace it onto the headphone side of the chair. And then I'm gonna go back and use a paintbrush and black acrylic paint to paint it in. And you're probably wondering, since they're headphone chairs, does it actually play music? Well, I'm gonna install some speakers. There you go. Speakers are now installed. There's another chair that I built a while back. I figured I'd show y'all this one. I actually used a red saucer chair on this one, and I made some throw pillows out of like polyfill and stuff like that. So yeah, there's just a few options if you're considering building one yourself.
I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope you guys learned something. Go build yourself a chair or not. The drawings will be on my Facebook fan page. Don't forget to like and share, and if you like what I do here, hit the subscribe button down below. And yeah. Alright, I'll see you guys later.